What's up, movie lovers? I'm Mike, and this is Gotta Love Them Movies. Oh, you guys, it is... What day of the week is today? It's Wednesday. Welcome back to Wednesday. Oh, what a glorious Wednesday it is. It's so good. I forgot what day of the week it is. Welcome back to the studio. Welcome back to Gotta Love Them Movies. This is just an online community where we all get together and talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of that good stuff. We just want to provide an outlet. You know, there's so much movie news, so much happening, and it's so weird in a COVID world where we have all this movie news coming out, but like there's no movies in theaters. Okay, there's three movies in theaters right now, but I mean, everything else, you know, taking into consideration, this is a weird time to be talking about movies and movie news, and you know, there's stuff dropping out on VOD that we're watching. We're gonna talk about a little premium VOD movie that we saw earlier, but you know, before we start in on the show and start talking about all of our favorite things, like I said before, we need to introduce our very special guest for the day. Now, today's guest holds the record at Gotta Love Them Movies for coming to us live from the furthest distance away on planet Earth. That's right, our guest today is coming to you all the way from New Zealand. Put your hands together for my favorite Kiwi, Cordy Black! Woo!
Kia ora, kia ora. And just to further confuse you on the time, it is technically Thursday, my dudes, in Aotearoa at the moment.
Oh, man.
Great to be here.
It's Thursday. That's how the international dateline works, you guys. That's how.
Yes, we're first to see the sun. And since I'm first to see the sun, apologies if I sip from my tea. This is breakfast time. Nice to meet you.
Good morning to you, Cordy. It is an afternoon. 4 o'clock on the afternoon here on the East Coast. United States. First of all, let me ask, how has your morning been so far, Cordy? And second follow-up question, what is it about movies and television shows and, you know, nerddom and all that stuff that kind of makes you qualified to hang out with us on Gotta Love the Movies and do a little movie chit-chat?
Oh, boy. I'm actually a bit of an art house cinema outcast. So my family is very big into sort of niche cinema, art house cinema. I grew up in a family that loved the Soviet filmmaking canon. And when I was 6, my favorite film was a Tarkovsky film. I am not at all that. I'm not at all that snobby now. I absolutely love various different kind of films. I love horror films. I love like pop cultural references and especially genre films like sci-fi. And I quite like Hong Kong action movies and Chinese action movies. So I was up late last night. You'll see why this is relevant. Chatting with my partner about basically various different cool Chinese fighting movies. So it was a good night last night. We got in real deep. Yes.
And it
is a nice spring morning here.
Into this, you know, deep kind of, not that it's a Hong Kong film per se, but you know, just it has some Chinese overtones, which if you are at all familiar with anything of what we're talking about, those are all hints and clues as to things that we will, you know, be discussing later on in the show. But the big question is, you guys, what is on the show rundown for today? Well, as always, we're going to tell you how to subscribe to the YouTube channel and why that's important. We're going to do a quick Toy Tuesday recap from yesterday. Going to go over some movie news as we always do, and then we're going to hit up Review Wednesdays. And today's Review Wednesday movie review is Mulan, the 2020 release. This came out on Disney Plus the other day. Yeah, that was a couple days ago. Then we're going to open up the Gotta Love Them Movies mailbag, take your email questions, finish the show off with your live questions. So if you are watching the show live, please jump on down to the comment section below, write a few comments if there's anything that you need clarification on, or if you just want to add your 2 cents about whatever it is that we're talking about. If you have a question about something completely different, like I said, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. So, before we well, I guess we have officially started the show, but as always, hop on over to youtube.com, check out GottaLoveThemMovies. You will see a little red box in the upper right-hand corner that says subscribe. Go ahead and click that button, and here's why that is important. Once you click the subscribe button, that builds my subscriber base. But Mike, we're watching this show live on Facebook. I know and understand that, but all these videos I upload directly to YouTube to help grow that subscriber base. By growing the subscriber base, and like the more subscribers that we have and the more videos on YouTube that are watched, it will eventually qualify me to start earning ad revenue. Hooray! Now, what does ad revenue mean? It means that I get to make this show my full-time job. So please, most definitely go over to YouTube, Gotta Love Them Movies, click that red subscribe button. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And as soon as we hit 1,000 subscribers, this show will be moving from Facebook over to YouTube full time. So something to be aware of. Go ahead and check that out. As I said earlier, we're going to do a really quick recap on Toy Tuesdays. I'm not going to go through the whole rigmarole. What is Toy Tuesdays? It's a free toy giveaway from my personal collection. There is no expense to the winner, but you must adhere to the following conditions. You have to be a subscriber to the YouTube channel. You have to like and share this video, and comment below in the comment section the words Toy Tuesdays, and you will be eligible to win this plush sausage with a uniquely upside down embroidered face. I don't know why the face is... I know, right? It's crazy. I don't know.
It's the upside down smiley. So it's like a sarcastic, I'm having a terrible day sausage. I love it.
It's so weird. It's a plush sausage from the Denny's restaurant franchise. Yeah, so just jump down to the comment section below, write Toy Tuesdays with the word Grand Slam, and you will be eligible to win this plush sausage.
It's wearing a hat, no less. I mean, in case we had any doubt about which way was up.
Right? Yeah. I mean, you gotta... I don't know. This whole thing is just so weird. It's just so weird. So, but hey, like I said, why not? Okay, guys. So with all of that out of the way, I think it's time to open up and take a little bit of movie news.
What? What?
All right, let's talk about some of the few things that have dropped yesterday and today. There's a few interesting things going on. First and foremost, where's my browser? There's my browser. Our first little bit of movie news comes to us from Deadline. And this particular article is all about how I'm sure everybody remembers a few years ago there was a hashtag going around about Oscars so white. Hashtag Oscars so white. And everybody has been wanting to know what the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts, and Sciences was going to do about it. The Academy Board was primarily made up of straight white males for eons, and that was the one demographic that got to choose what films were eligible for Best Picture and, blah, 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 all the other categories. Not only what was eligible, but what films would win, ultimately. And that has been extremely problematic over the years. Especially what happened about 5 years ago with hashtag Oscar So White is that it really pointed out how unbalanced this process was. And so yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, yep, September 8th, yesterday, the Oscars officially announced that they are changing the standards for eligibility so far, currently just for Best Picture. Any other film, or rather all other films, are still going to be eligible for, Best Director and, cinematography and writing and adapted screenplay and all that stuff. But I just kind of like to scroll down here for a minute. So if you will bear with me, let's jump over to the webpage. Here we go. These are the new guidelines that are going to be coming out. There's 4 different standards, as they're calling them: Standard A, Standard B, Standard C, Standard D. And they're going to be rolling out a new standard for each Oscars 1 year after the next. So by 2025, all 4 standards will be in effect. This upcoming Oscars, that will not be in effect just yet, but it will apply to the 2022 season. So Standard A, I'm not going to go through all of this stuff because, there's quite a bit of information here, but just to kind of give you an overview. Standard A, In order to qualify for Standard A, there's 3 different categories: lead or significant supporting actors, general ensemble cast, and main storyline or subject matter. In order to qualify for Standard A, you need to your film has to be able to check mark or checkbox off any one of these 3 categories, which is at least one of your lead actors or significant supporting actors in an underrepresented racial or ethnic group must be from the following category: either Asian, Hispanic, Latinx, Black, African American, Indigenous, Native American, Alaskan Native, Middle Eastern, North African, Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander, or any other underrepresented race or ethnicity. The same thing goes for women, racial or ethnic groups, LGBTQ groups, people with cognitive or physical disabilities, or who are deaf or hard of hearing. And this, it kind of goes in on and on and on. Are you going to cast your lead actors or significant supporting actors in this way? What's your general ensemble cast looking like? Or what is the main storyline or subject matter about in your film? And then, Standard B, pretty much the same stuff, but in different aspects of filmmaking. Standard C is, same thing, but in terms of paid apprenticeships or internship opportunities, training opportunities. And then a Standard D is the same thing, but in terms of marketing, publicity, and distribution. Guys, there is a lot to unpack here. Cordy, had you heard about this yet? And if you have or if you haven't, what's your initial knee-jerk reaction? Because I'll share my knee-jerk reactions in a moment, but how do you feel about the Oscars changing eligibility requirements to be eligible for Best Picture?
So I heard something of this nature was coming. I haven't had a chance to read the details yet. My big thing is around directors. As a rule, behind the scenes, though, the high-powered roles, you do get like a massive gender imbalance.
Yes.
With direction, it's particularly bad, and it's something that Equity New Zealand, which is the New Zealand Screen Actors Union, has been big about, like trying to support producers and directors. So I would be super keen to see, like, are they going to reward films for having a diverse production team, for example? Because that would be really interesting. And yeah, I wear another hat as a union person in the tech sector, so anyone working in, again, post-production roles or kind of the many kind of IT focused roles that increasingly go towards making up a major movie motion picture. Again, diversity in those work environments is also really cool and awesome. Really love that the interns part is in there.
Right.
Really love that like there are many ways to fulfill the criteria potentially, like both include terms of including people with disabilities, great. Maybe different sexualities or sexual identities, also great. This is really fascinating. I can't wait to see how it plays out.
I agree.
I'm just kind of excited about it. I think it could mean that some scripts decide to go ahead because when they're being put forward for consideration and they look a bit diverse and a bit niche, that will be seen as an advantage, not necessarily a hard sell. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Now, my knee-jerk reaction to this was, like, when I first saw the article last night and I was reading through it, my knee-jerk reaction was, okay, like, in principle, I'm all for this, but what about films like 1917? What about films like Ford v. Ferrari? Or a few years ago, Frances McDormand, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Well, maybe a little less so, 3 Billboards, but last year, 1917, which I personally thought was deserving of Best Picture. I really thought that should have taken Best Picture last year. My knee-jerk reaction, now granted, after I slept on it, I'm revealing my cards here, but last night I had a very different reaction from what I have today, this morning, or this afternoon, as the case may be. So my knee-jerk reaction last night was, but there's like really great stories and really great films. Like, if you've seen 1917, it's all about these 2 English officers in the Great War, which was, we now call World War One, going through the English countryside looking for this one particular soldier to, give him information, and it just so happened to be the central soldier's brother. So he's out looking for his brother. And, they just go through the whole countryside and blah, 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 whatever. Given the subject matter, given the race or ethnicity of the actors in that role, in that time period, and in the way the story played out, and the people behind the camera as well, that movie, by these guidelines, would not have qualified for the Oscars. So that was my knee-jerk reaction, is that we could potentially see like really great films not be able to qualify for Best Picture. But then I slept on it. And this morning, I started thinking like, well, yeah, and it doesn't prohibit films like that from still being made. Sure, go ahead, go off and continue to make whatever film strikes your heart and makes you feel like you can be inspired by the story or whatever. But by putting these new guidelines in terms of what can qualify for Best Picture, it becomes more inclusive and more diverse and gives other people more opportunities. But also, on a grander scale, it is the social consciousness that is kind of evolving. Like, do we even want, in, let's say 5 years from now, 5 years from now, in 2025, when all of these new guidelines are put into effect for Best Picture, are those, like the 1917s, are those the kinds of movies that we as a social collective are going to point at and say, meh, that's the movie that I wanted to win Best Picture? I argue no. I would argue that we are evolving as people. We are learning how to be more inclusive and involved in other people's lives. I don't know, Cordy, do you see it differently, or do you think that I have a leg to stand on in this regard?
I find it quite funny that you had a quibble about a historical movie because, I'm a historical reenactor, and the history is full of black people. So whether that is Eastern France in the early 1900s, early 20th century, there would not just be white people there. There's plenty of potential for an interesting homosexual love story in the trenches in World War One. In fact, there are a great many wonderful gay poets who died in those trenches. There are just so many ways that you can think about that story and think about that setting beyond the sort of stereotypical idea of some tweedy English people wandering around a field or whatever. So I think maybe it'll challenge us to write our histories better and to represent our histories in the actual true colourful way that reflects the times.
I
yes,
think those are wonderful points, things that I never stopped to consider as well before. That's what this is all about. Let's create this community. Let's have these discussions. Let's move forward and see what other untapped resources that we have, But the question is, guys, what do you think about the new guidelines that the Oscars is shaping up for? Do you agree that, this is a direction that we need to be moving in as a social collective? Or do you have other thoughts or opinions? Is there something that we're leaving out that we haven't stopped to consider before? Or are we bang on the money and yes, we need to wake up and kind of like, let's explore unexplored territory. What do you think? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys, moving on to our next bit of news today. This is coming from CNN, which... it's rare that we get movie news from CNN, but this I thought was really particularly interesting. The Golden Girls has been recast with an all-black cast to include Tracee Ellis Ross and Regina King, not to mention a few other people. This is a really cool thing. So this particular this particular recasting of the Golden Girls happened last night over Zoom. And I don't know, Cordy, did you hear about this yet? Or is this new to you? Because we're gonna get into what exactly this means or what happened last night over Zoom, but have you even heard of the Golden Girls being recast with an all-black female cast?
No, this is really interesting. Tell me more.
Okay, well, yes, I would love to tell you more. So last night on Zoom, okay, so let me clarify this a little bit and say that the television show The Golden Girls is not coming back as an all-black cast. This was for a charity event. The charity being called Color of Change. They go hand in hand with Black Lives Matter to try and specifically with Color of Change. What they are doing, their purpose is to raise awareness in a more political spectrum. So by donating to the cause, you're helping to create awareness. As they say here on CNN, quote, this event, let me see if I can highlight this real quick. This event is in partnership with Zoom, and the first episode is spotlighting and supporting Color of Change, the nation's largest online racial justice organization. Now, what specifically this was, what this was for, all these four ladies, they got together on Zoom and they did a table read. They had the original script from episode 1 of The Golden Girls, and they did a table read where they all played a different character. Sophia, Dorothy, Blanche, Rose. They all took on a different character, and they did a table read to try and make awareness about the Color of Change organization, and also to try and raise money for the organization. Now, this was done in conjunction with Zoom. Zoom was a major sponsor and partner in this particular venture. Again, my knee-jerk reaction when I first heard about this, because the headline can be a little misleading. All-black cast of the Golden Girls reboot, and you stop and think like, oh, I don't know if this is a good idea, you guys. But then I started reading the article and I went down through and I was like, oh, this is for racial awareness. This is for support in a political spectrum. This is to try and get the word out and say, hey, here's kind of a publicity stunt, if you will. But it's actually a really cool idea. And also, why not? Why not? Like, it's for charity. It's specifically supporting their organization, and I thought this was a really cool idea. So essentially, Cordy, that is what this recast of the Golden Girls thing was. Do you have any thoughts on this? Like, how does this strike you, and do you think this was a good idea?
I just really want to hear some of those lines in being spoken by other actors and another group of actors, all who presumably all know each other and have that relationship. Because like Golden Girls was all about the posse, right? It's the actors engaging together as friends as much as it is about the characters in the show engaging as friends. So I'm just really want to watch this. So it's probably worth it just because I want to watch a different ensemble tackle the same lines and see what comes out of it. So yeah, I would say that. I
very much want to watch it. Now, the broadcast already happened last night over Zoom, and they have yet to release the video online. I was looking for it everywhere. I'm sure within the next few days they're probably going to release it online. I would imagine probably on the Color of Change website is where they're going to release this video with all the information on how to donate and how to continue to raise awareness. I thought this was a really cool idea, and just like yourself, I would love to see how like a different ensemble, but as you point out, it's the ensemble that made the show. It wasn't Dorothy and Blanche and Rose and Sophia. It was specifically B. Arthur. It was Rue McClanahan. It was Betty White and Sophia Petrillo. Her name is evading me at the moment. It was that group of women that had such great chemistry together. And I think when this particular group of women, because they have great chemistry together, I mean, they've been working together for what, 20 plus years now in, various forms and aspects, like their paths keep crossing, but they've been working together for a long time now. And to see them all on screen together and have their own brand of chemistry, I think this was just brilliant. I thought it was really cool, and I can't wait to watch the video.
Yes, I would love to see just more TV series in general. Leave the door open, especially since we're all over video, for table readings of more contemporary TV scripts in particular. Just like we sit down around a table as theatre people and do a play reading. Why not a TV
Yeah, why
series? Like,
not?
why not a sitcom? It's a sitcom. Like, you can literally sit and go through the patter. If anybody saw the nanny cast reuniting to redo an old episode, like, it works
Yeah.
brilliantly over video call. I would love to see more shows, just like, especially ones of a certain vintage, just say, hey, look, here's the material, make of it what you will, and put it on air for us all to love again.
Again, because it doesn't matter. It's literally just a group of people getting together to do a table read, as you point out, over Zoom. Like, let's see what other people can do with it. You're not reinventing the wheel or anything. It's just, hey, let's get together, have some fun. And I think that's exactly what this project was. Question is, guys, what do you think of the reboot recast with an all-black female version of the Golden Girls over Zoom? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Are you somewhere in between? Jump down to the comment section below. Let us know your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you and hear your take on that. Okay, guys. With all of our movie news, like the breaking news, out of the way, it is now time to jump right into Review Wednesday.
It stinks.
You guys, Review Wednesday is here. Review Wednesday is here. As you know, every Wednesday we always review a brand new film that just came out. This particular film that just came out is 2020 Disney's version of Mulan. That's the live action version of Mulan. It just came out on Disney Plus. Yes, I paid the $30 to essentially not buy the movie. It's a $30 rental that lasts for 3 months. I'm all for it. Why not? Of course. There are some aspects to this film that I liked. I think there were more aspects to this film that I did not enjoy. Right off the gate, the big question that everybody is asking, is it worth the $30 to rent this movie? Cordy, is it worth $30 to rent Mulan for 3 months?
You're asking somebody with like a really Scottish heritage. I think if it was bundled with other films, then yes. It's really hard when there's such little choice at the moment. As you said, there are only sort of 3 films out at the moment. So I feel like we've stepped back in time to an era when, you only had so much choice in blockbusters.
Hey, I've got a nickel. Can
and
I
now,
go see a movie? See?
yeah, it's a little bit like that. Maybe we are in a second Great Depression where, our only escapism is a limited series of options.
It's true.
And I think that's actually apt because this film's quite like colourful. I feel like they were trying to lean into that sort of entertaining pabulum spectacle thing. Yeah. Oh man, I might save my judgment for the end, but I'm Scottish by nature, so probably no.
I love the qualifier. You're Scottish by nature, but probably no. I would have to agree with you, Cordy. I would not recommend. And see, that's the thing. Like, I'm trying to champion the cause here.
It's not a terrible movie, but when you say it that way, it's like, well, would I have paid $30 to see it in a theater? I know.
I mean, I would have for the.
I might have paid $15 New Zealand to see it at a theater. Am I paying $30? Is it $30 US?
30. Yeah,
it's quite a lot
US,
of dollars.
Yeah.
With the exchange rate, that's a lot of dollars. That's a no for me.
Yeah. What's that? 40 New Zealand dollars? Something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I'll need to check the exchange rate, but yeah, it's it's a bit.
Here's the thing, you guys. I've been trying to champion this movie, and even before I saw it, before it came out, because here's the thing: Disney is not as wealthy as we all like to give them credit for. That being said, I mean, they're going to be fine. They're going to be okay. They're not in the same position as AMC theaters. They're not even in the same position as the company that I work for my day job. So in the long run, Disney will be just fine. That being said, this type of format, the idea that, VOD premium access, where you're paying 30, I mean, you would pay 20 in New York City. I don't know, Cordy, what movie tickets are like in New Zealand right now, but in New York City, you pay $20 for a movie ticket, bare minimum, sometimes more. I would be paying $20 to go see this anyway. And, I probably would have. Mm-hmm. So paying $30 to see it as many times as I want in my home for the next 3 months until it gets released to everybody on Disney Plus. I'm actually okay with that. I'm totally fine with that. It's a business model that we're not familiar with yet. It's a business model that it rubs a lot of people the wrong way, but it's something that in the long run, I mean, depending on how long this pandemic is going to last, this could be the way to save film. It's at least in the way that we've known it before. So I've been a huge champion of this cause. But
a school account or something, it would be brilliant, right? So, or some sort of community collective thing. So you have a listening party and you get a bunch of people along to your house or whatever to sign up and watch the film. Like, it's brilliant for classrooms, for example,
exactly.
Rather than having to invest in a physical, when I was real small VHS, when I was less smaller DVD, right? And then it sits there moldering on your shelf.
Yeah.
How cool would it be to get a subscription, say, here you go, class, here's the code, here's the password, go watch the thing. I mean, it's brilliant for classrooms. It's brilliant for anything like that. So that's probably where I'd see the subscription model really being awesome. Mm-hmm. And to that extent, then yes, it could potentially open up a whole lot of interesting and new films for the masses.
I agree. But in this particular case, I just can't recommend paying the $30 to go see it. Anyway, we can hash this out all that we want, but we actually want to talk about the movie. Let's review the movie. If you haven't seen it, we're not going to give away spoiler. I mean, it's a remake. It's the same exact
I'm going to
movie.
talk about the cinematography. Yeah. So great. We're revealing spoilers for movies that already exist.
I mean, you already know the basic premise. The Emperor of China is in his life is in danger. The empire is in danger. Every I guess the oldest male or the most able and willing male from every family in the province needs to come and fight on the emperor's behalf. Mulan's family doesn't have, or rather the father, he's an older gentleman. He physically is not able to fight. He's going to die. Everybody knows he's going to die in battle. Mulan puts the battle armor on and rushes off to war under the guise of, I'm a boy. Instead. So, and then she goes off and has her own adventures and blah, blah, blah. Whatever. You've seen the movie back in 1999. Let's talk about this film. And we're going to start off with acting. Cordy, the acting to me wasn't terrible. It definitely left something to be desired. I first noticed how poor the acting was. There's a sequence when Mulan is in battle, she's fighting. I think it's right when she is noticing her chi, when she starts allowing her energy to start fighting, not for her but kind of with her, in conjunction of who she is or whatever. And they do not do a very good job at explaining why the chi is important, but we'll move into that in a minute. There's the shot of the actor who's playing Mulan when she's kind of doing this weird barrel roll mid-air. The camera zooms in on her face and she's completely flat. She could be staring at a wall thinking about dogs, or she could be in the middle of this intense action battle and the look on her face is exactly the same.
So I have a feeling I know why the lead is emoting strangely, and I feel like she's been told to represent something, a masculine character projection and a feminine character projection, and the feminine character projection is meant to be this meek, understated, quiet voiced person, but the problem is that when she's coming into her own as a fighting character, she still retains some of that direction, and that maybe is why it's why is she not emoting? Oh, because she's meant to be a chick now. That's not good directing.
No,
it's not good acting either.
I keep going back to in terms of a woman fighting like a man in the movie Atomic Blonde with what's her name?
Oh, that's so good, man. That's such a good. Ah, yes, such a good.
Shoot, what's her name? Atomic Blonde lady. What? You know who I'm talking about? Shoot.
I'm just gonna leave you hanging.
I know everybody knows. Let me know in the comment section below because I can't think of her name. Anyway, Atomic Blonde lady. She played Furiosa. I'm just gonna call her Furiosa. So Furiosa on the set of Atomic Blonde. Charlize Theron. There it is. Got it.
See, you got there in the
I'm
end.
there. So Charlize Theron
Don't
on
even
the
know
set
my-
of Atomic Blonde was very adamant about saying a woman should not fight like a man. A woman should fight like a woman because they have their own strengths, they have their own weaknesses, and when you know which is which, you can like shy away from your weaknesses and play into your strengths and fight in a way that is purely unique and advantageous for you. And I thought that was brilliant. I never stopped to think about that before, but I was like, yeah, that's completely right. And in this movie, exactly as you say, like to have someone force themselves to fight in a way that is not natural for their body to fight that way, it seems counterintuitive. It seems counterintuitive. And as you say, that kind of informs the acting a little bit. And across the board, there was only one actor that I actually liked their performance, and that was Donnie Yen. I liked Donnie Yen in the movie. That was it.
Oof. Yeah, I think my main issue was to do with tone. This has nothing to do with accents, but this is to do with the register in which the actors are speaking, and that shifts like crazy. And whether that's because when they're referencing the Disney bits of the movie, when they're calling out certain lines, for example, as a sort of hat tip to the 1998 animated movie, I feel like the tone goes like way more casual, more American, chatty, kidsy. Yep. And then there are other parts where messengers or other military characters are speaking in this very high kind of formal register. And it's just strange. Yeah. It's very jarring sometimes.
Well, also, one of the other things that I noticed that happens a lot is everyone has a different accent. Some people have heavy Chinese accents. Some people have American accents. And if this is all taking place in the same universe, shouldn't there be some kind of level of coherency?
I don't know. I mean, you see a lot of kind of different accents and different class levels of accents in Chinese cinema anyway. So okay. I figured it was just kind of the English-speaking version of that. These are soldiers. They speak a slightly, with a different accent. It's less.
That's fair.
But yeah,
That's fair.
It's interesting. So Hua Mulan, the films come from a tradition of Chinese opera, and I wonder if some of the older actors are thinking of the Chinese opera origins, which explains the fight scenes too, and maybe that's why they're going for this interesting formal register, and then maybe the younger actors are not as clued into that, and that's why there's just this generational, I don't know.
Anyway, guys, we could rehash, the acting all day, every day, and, cover every single aspect of what it is that the actors are supposed to do and what they did. At the end of the day, I think it's fair. It wasn't the worst acting I've ever seen, but it was also kind of lackluster. The emotion was left out. They didn't get me. As actors, their emoting style didn't make me connect with any of the characters. And for all those reasons, I'm giving acting a 10 out of 20. Cordy, do you think 10 out of 20 is fair?
I might be slightly more generous. There are a couple more characters that I found interesting, but they were more interesting as characters or character designs, I guess. Okay. Don Yen was awesome.
Donnie Yen was really great. He was my redeemer.
He made me believe in that film all over again when he was back. I'm like, yes, that's right. I've come home to the part of the movie I like. Also,
I need to point this out in terms of acting. First of all, Jet Li was in the movie, which it took me a while to realize, the Emperor is Jet Li? What? There was some horrible ADR. Terrible ADR over Jet Li's mouth movements. Clearly, it was not Jet Li speaking, and the way the way the voice actor was emoting and portraying the Emperor's voice was not the same way Jet Li was portraying his voice in terms of his facial
No, they
acting.
should have just let Jet Li speak. I was wondering what was going on there, and I was because that was very strange. It was
Yeah.
like a video game
It was
voice
really
acting,
bad.
wasn't it?
It was really bad. It was really bad. Anyway, so there's that. Let's move on to directing. So the directing of the film, as we kind of touched on earlier, Cordy touched on this. There were some huge tone issues. There were some major tone shifts that were not congruent with each other. Cordy and I were talking before the show started, and was saying that it was like there was two different films being mashed into one, and I very much agree with that. I rarely have a problem with CGI. Like, okay, you want to use CGI, cool. You want to use green screen, cool. But the use of green screen and the use of CGI in this film were definitely subpar, especially on a Disney budget. They spent $200 million making this movie. That's the same amount of money as the first Avengers film. That's the same.
Yeah,
amount.
you can get animating rabbits right, guys.
Yeah, I mean, we can see how to do CGI correctly. Lucasfilm they're okay doing it. I think Weta Workshop does, CGI the best. But Marvel has been doing CGI pretty well. There's no reason that Disney, because it's all in, the same, like Lucasfilm and Marvel and Disney, it's all in the same house together. You want to outsource to Weta, which I would actually very much appreciate. You can do that as well. There's so much technology to show how to do it correctly, and they did not do it very well. This movie has a really bad pacing problem, an extremely bad pacing problem. They don't let any of the moments breathe. You want to connect with these characters on an emotional level, and you can't because it's time for the next thing. And
yeah, the third act in particular had these like unnecessary multiple escalations, and including ones like that you feel, oh, that would have been emotionally hit harder if it was at the nadir of the character's arc. Like, difficulties that would have been more emotionally stirring if they'd been piled on when Hua Mulan is at her like lowest point. That would have been more effective to me than like, oh, let's just save them for later in the middle of an action sequence to pointlessly up the stakes. Write a better fight scene.
Right? Yes.
Just write a better fight scene. Don't add these silly messy things. Right? It's just fiddly. But then again, I think a lot of the directing fluffs come from studio pressure. I think that it's a narrative pressure. You have the pressure of the Disney plot points and trying to like tick off certain iconic moments or scenes or bits of imagery, and then the other film, and it's a real film. I think that this film is cribbing heavily from the 2009 Chinese Ballad of Hua Mulan, especially in the military scenes. Like the costuming and some of the military training scenes are really familiar, and I think there's a lot of love for that film.
Right.
But they don't mesh together, and by insisting that you sort of tick off all of the iconic points from either film, you kind of just get this hot mess.
Yeah,
And it's sad because most of those films are good and inspiring, and they deserve to be known. But together, it's just a bad compromise.
It is. I think you put it best. It's a bad compromise, and it's not the worst directing I've ever seen. It was, given the script, given the material, given the time constraints, okay, it was fine. But in the end, I had to go with an 11 out of 20 for directing.
There are some good visual call-outs. So there are some really nice uses of visual symbolism, and the parts of the film that hang together the best are also the parts that make use of those narrative callbacks. So you have the parallels between Hua Mulan is wearing a leather binder, and she's bracing herself, and then her father has a strap, leather straps, and a splint on his leg, and he binds that up and girds himself. And in both cases, it's sort of both a crutch for them, and it is also holding them back. So there's nice pieces of, and the use of the phoenix imagery instead of Chris Tucker as the dragon, because even in 1998 I knew Chris Tucker as the dragon was
Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy as a dragon. Oh, shame on dishonor on my count. But yeah, no, it's like that the use of a dragon, which is this very phallic masculine house imagery, replacing it by the phoenix, which is the archetypal kind of yin symbol. I'm into that. It's way more feminist to have it be the phoenix, the feminine power symbol, as the family ancestral symbol. It makes like a bunch more sense for a bunch more reasons.
True.
And then they called forward to that. So the imperial throne has a phoenix because it's part of the imperial imagery as well. So that was like there were some really nice kind of moments like that where there were just little subtle visual links. But again, those occurred in the parts of the film that were like thematically consistent, but where the film had to go and tell another story, it completely departed
We
from
could have had
that,
a
and so you
better-
lost.
and,
The
you
cool,
know, this ties
you
into
could
the
have had
writing.
a real cool film.
It ties into the
Yeah.
writing, but like as you say, like we could have had these better themes. We could have had a better, a stronger emotional reaction to what was going on and to the characters themselves and their emotional journey. Had we had. If we had those opportunities to connect with those moments a little bit better, as you say, the Phoenix, I like the on the nose symbology of like rising from the ashes. Like I thought that was really cool. I never stopped to think that, dragon is more masculine, whereas Phoenix is more feminine. That's really cool. I think that's a better thematic symbology than, having a dragon. There's a lot of this movie that could have worked so well, especially that they took out the music. Like it's not a musical. They use some of like the melodies from the songs as scoring techniques. But yeah, I don't know. 11 out of 20s. I feel that that's a fair score for directing. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't garbage. It had some really bad pacing problems. The tone, the theme was all over the place. And, CGI, like green screen was all, and, again, the ADR, working on the ADR was terrible. Anyway,
I feel like the instructions, like the directing instructions to the actors and to how we're going to do this scene and this scene, it's like very disjointed.
Right.
So that a lot of the other choices, like, again, music and storytelling choices, that's out of the director's control. But there's a lot that was, and it, really doesn't feel consistent.
only out of the director's
Like, I
control in
agree with
terms
that
of
too.
writing. The director can change the pacing of the film and also what he
Oh, the pacing's way off,
and what they choose to incorporate into the film. So like even if it's on the paper, let's take that scene out, or we need more because this scene isn't working the way it is. Let's do some rewrites, let's do some reshoots, and then insert that in. And that's where the director has creative control. And then she
Yep.
I feel needed a little bit more, sometimes by adding more footage to a film, it feels shorter because, you have a better understanding of what's going on. Anyway, we could.
So this film clocked in, like, at a sort of feature length. I think it would have been a great 90-minute film with a lot of the Disney stuff taken out, or it would have been a great, like, Disney length 90-minute film.
Sure.
So yeah.
But we got to move on to writing. We got to move on. The writing of the movie. This is kind of something that we've been talking a lot about so far. Yes, the themes were great. The central idea, the concept of the story. But where this particular film falls short is that this film relies on your knowledge and experience from the original film. It doesn't get into that emotional connection. It doesn't allow you to sit in a moment because those moments were not provided on the page. The dialogue was it was fine. It got the story across. It got the points across. There were a few moments that were, pretty cool and interesting, but in terms of the actual storytelling, for me, it fell really short. It fell really short of the mark because we didn't really get to know who Mulan was in her heart. We see at the very beginning of the movie what she does and that she kind of is a free spirit, but then beyond that, don't know anything about it. There's no character development almost at all. The sister, Mulan's younger sister, we know one defining characteristic about her. She's scared of spiders. That's it. That's all we know about her. So A, why is she even there? B, by the sister character being there, what does she contribute to the overall story? The mother and the father obviously are grounding forces for Mulan. and they should be giving us those stakes as to why her story is important, but all of that is left flat. It's left flat with the Emperor. Even the villains, we don't know why, really. I mean, okay, they kind of go into detail, not detail. They skim over why the villains are doing what they're doing. It's a revenge plot. You did me wrong, so now I'm gonna do you wrong. Da 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 da. Womp. Okay, that's a very generic thing, but can we humanize the villains a little bit more? The witch character who turns into a hawk and flies around, she doesn't seem to have much narrative purpose at all.
She's a great character design, but she's like a video game character, right?
I agree. Yeah.
I mean, I really liked watching her move. I liked the way she fought. I liked the way that her visuals like incorporated with her fighting style and so on. But like, I really wanted her to get a moment in the sun in that film. I think it was taken away from her.
I feel there was a lot taken away from that character. There could have been so much more. The witch. I don't even know what the witch's name was. The witch could have been really cool. And like, there's a moment where she and Mulan connect, and she's like, "Who are you?" Well, I am whatever Mulan's male name was. I don't remember what it was. And she keeps saying, like, "Who are you? I know this is not who you are pretending. Or like, I know you're pretending to be somebody else. Who are you?" That could have been an extremely powerful moment, but we were robbed of it because we were so. The filmmakers were so consumed with telling the rest of the story that we didn't get to stop and get an answer to that question, and or see Mulan figure it out for herself. At some point, she just kind of has this, veil lifted from her eyes and goes, "Oh, I should be myself. That's how I earn my chi. That's how I can fight with dignity." I guess I just created a new cheer, but I just felt so robbed that the writing did not work for me on any level. Cordy, how was the writing for you?
I feel really conflicted because there's a huge sort of niche following of the 1998 Disney version of the film, and to a lot of us in our counterculture, it is a queer story. Or it has those camp undertones. When it was late 90s, we were starved for content.
Sure, yeah.
And down to the choice of name. So when the Disney version, she like fumbles and chooses the name Huaping, which is a pretty hilarious pun if you're Chinese. But and I think so that was kind of the emotional core of it, was this kind of almost this sex comedy. You have the gender comedy of the armed forces, and a lot of like. Some slapstick and things, and a lot of the campness was just sucked out of out of that middle section. And I did miss that as a storytelling thing, because as a device, much like the singing is a powerful emotional device. So you're singing a girl with fighting for, and then suddenly the 4th Regiment is dead, was like a really strong emotional beat in the Disney version, which ironically, even though in the animated Disney version, and ironically in this film, even though you would think it would be like a bit more realistic because it's a live action film, the emotional beat isn't there because the singing and the silliness actually gave that contrast. So without the silliness, the story feels weaker. So the other way you can lean is to go really gritty, but they can't because it's a PG movie, right?
From a comedy perspective, it was from a comedy perspective.
But the comedy was kind of important, like even if it's dated.
Well, that's
but
what
the comedy
makes us connect.
Purpose.
Like, okay, it's lighthearted and silly and jovial, but that's what makes the audience connect to the characters on screen. It's I always say because you and I are both comedians, we're both improvisers. If you want to get somebody to like you, make them laugh. And that's how you connect with human beings, is through, lighthearted tone in nature. And that you're in. And we didn't have, there was very little likability amongst any of these characters, because I'm not saying that everybody needs to make you laugh. Definitely not. But the heart was removed because the personal connections just weren't there, right?
And it is like, the great trick of musicals is what people are thinking because they walk away and they sing about it, right? So if you don't have that, how are you going to tell that story?
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. Anyway, guys, for all those reasons, I am going to give the writing a score of 8 out of 20. It was not very strong. The themes were awesome. And, as Cordy points out, the idea of the dual gender identity was something I'd never stopped to consider before. Like, that's actually a really cool theme. As you say, in the counterculture that I never was a part of and never stopped to consider before. That's a great aspect to the story. They could have delved into that a little bit more. The idea of, taking on a role or pretending to be something that you're not for the greater good, I think is a really strong theme that, they kind of, I don't want to say they glossed over it because it's the main aspect of the movie, but it could have, they did not stick the landing. They did not stick the landing, and the meaning just was, it was lost. It was lost. So yeah, 8 out of 20 is what I'm giving the writing. Now for overall takeaway, the overall takeaway of the film, I think this was for me the strongest aspect, especially just in those points that I pointed out. That there are some really great themes there. Themes of pretending to be something that you're not, and then having to come to terms with who you are. Because, as Mr. Rogers taught every single one of us, you are the only person in the world that gets to be you. And by being you, you bring all of your own thoughts and ideas and expressions and experience to any given situation. Okay, maybe they may not be things that the situation needs in the moment, but there are going to be so many other situations and opportunities for you to contribute to any given thing. I thought that the themes of this movie, the general messages, were some of the most important parts of the film. Cordy, how do you feel about the takeaway or the themes or the life lessons that we can learn from this movie? Could they have been improved? Is there something else that you would have liked to have seen?
There's one moment that stuck with me, which is just it's not an acting moment, but it is a character moment. So in the in both of the other Mulan movies I've referenced, I guess some power is taken away from the central character at the end. So the 2009 version goes through this historical PTSD take where Hua Mulan is really sick of war and retires to the countryside, and reunites with family pretty much because she's sick of the horrors of war. And the 1998 version, she becomes this meek, Disney character of, oh no, I should be with my family, and gets her happy ending, And this version is a moment of choice. The final moment is a moment of her maximum power, which is the emperor is coming beseeching her for a job, and you don't get the decision. And I love that because that is the moment of maximum power, right?
Yeah,
that is a great way to end a story. And I thought that message of that is the apex, that is the happy ending for the character, is she gets the choice. That's a really cool message. So I liked that theme very much.
Extremely powerful.
I did like seeing more female interactions, even though it was a little ham-fisted, but no, yeah, I agree. The messages were much more up to date. Mm-hmm. There's a good reason why you'd want to remake the Disney version. There are some culturally jarring things, or some stuff that's really dated, and this new movie definitely made that apparent. And so,
I agree.
A remake is fine.
Yeah.
So I agree with your score. I think we give it a good score for the messages it's putting across.
Yeah, and for all those reasons you just laid out, that's why we're giving the overall takeaway a 16 out of 20. This is definitely the highest score that we're giving any of the categories today, and I think it earned it. I definitely think that it earned it. In terms of, its themes and the things that it was trying to teach and updating the story. So let's move on to effectiveness. How effective was this movie? Did it stick the landing? Did it accomplish the things that the filmmakers wanted it to accomplish? I would argue, surprise, surprise, no. I don't think that it did. I think that in order for this movie to be effective in the way that they wanted it to be, they had to stick the landing, which they didn't. I like, Cordy, what you just pointed out in the overall takeaway, which is ending the film on a choice, giving Mulan the choice instead of saying, hey, we love you, you're now going to be a part of our army or whatever, but giving her the choice, like that's an idea that, especially in the time period of which this film is set, that was just not done towards a woman. That was just not done. And have the opportunities of redemption in that level, having the opportunities of understanding and acceptance, in that time period, again, that was not done. And I think that is to the strength of the film in terms of the theme. But I don't think that for me, they didn't stick the landing because that emotionality wasn't there. For me, I keep saying emotionality and connecting with the characters, but that's what it all comes down to for me. If I don't identify with any of these characters, if I can't make a personal connection or feel what they're feeling in their moments of feels, then I can't gravitate to champion in their cause. Does that make sense?
It's a story about community, so if you don't feel kinship with at least some of the characters, it's kind of failed in its purpose, right?
Yeah, I'd agree. And for those reasons, that's why I gave effectiveness a 7 out of 20. Not great, not a 0, because it was effective on some level, but for me it didn't even cross the halfway point. Cordy, do you agree or disagree with 7 out of 20 for how effective the film was?
You're harsh on these scores,
I
but
am.
no, it's probably fair. It's definitely not a pass.
All right, guys. So with all of our scores, a 10 out of 20, 11 out of 20, an 8 out of 20, 16 out of 20, and a 7 out of 20. That brings our overall score of our review of Mulan to...
Moses supposes his toes are roses, but Moses supposes erroneously.
But Moses, he noses, his toes aren't roses, as Moses supposes his toes to be.
That's right, a 52 out of 100. 52 out of 100. And just that video clip of from that I just played from Singing in the Rain. All I can think of is exactly what they were just singing. Moses supposes his toes are roses, but Moses supposes erroneously. But Moses noses his toes aren't roses, as Moses supposes his toes to be. It just makes me laugh. It makes me giggle. Has nothing to do with the movie. But yeah, 52 out of 100. Cordy, do you think that's fair? Not fair?
Oh, man. Yeah, you're a tough reviewer, aren't you?
I am.
I feel bad because a lot of love has gone into this film. I want to support female directors. I feel as though there's there was a lot of goodwill that went into making the film.
Well, nobody sets out to make a bad movie.
Nobody sets out to make a bad film.
Why would you?
I mean, just yeah. But on balance, like, can I say I was satisfied? No, not really. As I said, I want to go watch 2 other movies that are not this movie that are both very good. And you should definitely go watch the 2009 Ballad of Hua Mulan. It's a very good war story, and it's better acted.
So the question is, back to you guys. What did you think of this review? 52 out of 100. Do you think that's a bit harsh? I know Cordy thinks it's a bit harsh. I think it's right on the money. It's just barely over the halfway mark. This is not the kind of movie that I enjoyed. I enjoyed the 1999 animated film way better than I enjoyed it. Man, what is it with me and my English? I can't speak. Yeah, I enjoyed the animated film way better than I enjoyed this film. Where do you guys sit with Mulan? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you somewhere in between? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. And also definitely let me know how harsh you think I am about my grading system. All right, guys, with all that done and out of the way, it is time to open up our Gotta Love Them Movies mailbag. Alright, guys, let's open up this mailbag. And if you guys want to send me an email question, all you got to do is send me an email at GottaLoveThemMovies@gmail.com. I'll get that email anytime, night or day, 24/7. It's a 24/7 service because you know why? It's email. That's why. So if you want to get a question or a main topic on the show today, or not today, but anytime in the future, send me an email at GottaLoveThemMovies@gmail.com, and we will read your questions live on the air. All right, so speaking of those questions, let's move into our first mailbag question of the day. And our first mailbag question of the day comes from Matthew, who lives in Leeds in the UK. Matthew says, what are your thoughts on the whole Ray Fisher, Warner Brothers, Joss Whedon situation? Oof. This is a heavy one, you guys. This is actually something that I wanted to talk about on the show yesterday. This is something I wanted to address yesterday. It was still breaking news in some regards, and in a lot of ways it's still breaking news today, and it will be next week. This is, if you haven't heard, one of the actors who plays Cyborg in the Justice League movie, a few months ago, on I think it was July 1st, came out publicly and he accused Joss Whedon of inappropriate behavior, not in a weird sexual way, but he accused him of abusive behavior on the set of Justice League. Since then, he has come out with a little bit more information on his end, and Warner Brother Pictures has come out with their statements. And this is still an ongoing investigation, but the details that have come out about this story have been very, very confusing, to say the least. And I'm going to go through the whole chronology, the whole timeline. Before we get into that, Cordy, have you heard of this? Is this news to you, or where do you stand with the news of allegations, abusive allegations against Joss Whedon?
I think it's still playing out. I do actually remember this. I also am casting my mind back to the original film and wondering whether it suffered because of interesting directorial choices now.
Well, there's that. That's a whole other kettle of fish.
I just feel sorry for the poor man. It's whatever's gone on there. If you are there to do a job, you should have fun doing your job. It's just sad. I feel really bad for the actor.
All right, so for those of you who are not familiar with this situation, it took me a long time. Like I said, I wanted to talk about this yesterday, but the story is so complex, and the details are spread all over the place. They're spread between different news articles, different Instagram feeds, different tweets from different accounts. So I've had to go through and investigate the whole thing so I can get as much information as I can to pass on to you guys. So let's just jump into the chronology. So, as you know, back in 2017, Zack Snyder and his wife, Deborah Snyder, had to leave the film Justice League because of a horrible tragedy involving their daughter. So they left the film. The film was mostly filmed. They filmed, the vast majority of their scenes, but Warner Brothers hired director Joss Whedon to step in and take over. That was back in 2017. Now we're going to update. At some point, as far as the reports that I could see, it took place in July. At some point in July of this year, 2020, Ray Fisher met with Walter Hamada, who is the president of DC Films. He sat down to meet with Walter Hamada to reprise his role of Cyborg in the upcoming Flash movie. Okay, cool. And that's what kind of got everything else here out in the open. During that meeting, Ray Fisher revealed to Hamada unacceptable behavior of Joss Whedon during filming of Justice League. He felt uncomfortable. He wanted, understandably, Walter Hamada was not around. He wasn't even with DC or Warner Brothers at that time. So he wasn't made aware of this. He's aware of the situation now, but he wasn't there at the time that Joss Whedon was performing his abusive behavior. So in that meeting, Walter Hamada agreed. This is the fifth bullet point down. Walter Hamada agreed to have an investigation conducted. As some of the reports say from Ray Fisher's behalf, it took some arm twisting to get an investigation to happen. But Walter Hamada agreed to it and said, great, awesome. We'll get a third-party investigation team to come in and to investigate these claims. July 1st, 2020, Ray Fisher tweeted disparaging remarks against Joss Whedon, John Berg, and Jeff Johns. Jeff Johns and John Berg are executive producers on the film, and they work very closely with DC Films. The tweet on July 1st was the first time that this had become public knowledge. Everything that happened before, like the meeting with Walter Hamada, that was all on the down low. It was all behind closed doors. But on July 1st, 2020, Ray Fisher, this is the first time that he made this public knowledge. And here's his tweet. Here's his tweet. He said, Joss Whedon's on-set treatment of the cast and crew of Justice League was gross, abusive, unprofessional, and completely unacceptable. He was enabled in many ways by Jeff Johns and John Berg. Accountability is greater than entertainment. So that was his tweet. Then on August 20th, 2020, so a month and a half later, a little over a month and a half later, Ray Fisher tweeted an update about Warner Brothers. He said, oh, Cordy, we can see it there. Bye, Cordy. Ray Fisher then tweeted, after 5 weeks of interviews with various cast and crew, Warner Media has officially launched an independent third-party investigation to get to the heart of the toxic and abusive work environment created during Justice League reshoots. This is a massive step forward. I believe this investigation will show that Jeff Johns, Joss Whedon, and John Berg, and others, grossly abused their power during the uncertainty of AT&T's merger with Time Warner. Thank you, Warner Media and AT&T, for making strides to ensure a safer workplace for all. Accountability is greater than entertainment. Okay, so that's great. Awesome. You know, he expresses concerns to Walter Hamada. Hamada said, okay, great. Let's, it wasn't as easy as all that, but, you know, they conducted an investigation. They started an investigation. And, you know, Ray Fisher's like, hey, great, awesome. You're doing an investigation to get to the heart of this. This is what needs to happen. But guys, here's where things start to get a little messy, a little confusing. On August 26th, 6 days after Ray Fisher tweeted that last tweet, Ray Fisher emails his team to update them on the situation. And here's that email. Wow, Cordy, I keep having you your video in all of these tiles. So I'm just gonna mute you there. So the email that he sent his crew, that Ray Fisher sent to his crew, said, hey, crew, just got off the line with the investigator. Had to end the interview early before going into detail with him. He's definitely been put on the case by Warner Brothers Pictures and not Warner Media. His findings will go directly and solely to Warner Brothers Pictures legal. That's a huge deal, you guys. That's a huge deal. He goes on to say, he also had another person on the line as a witness, which we weren't made aware of. And I told him I needed to have a rep on the line as security for myself, which if you find yourself in a situation like that, that is a great idea to do. The email ends with him saying, he tried to keep me on the line, the investigator. He tried to keep me on the line, but I told him I would need to consult my team before proceeding. Can we jump on a call to discuss soon? Best, Ray. So, woof. So he was interviewed by one of the investigators. Come to find out, it wasn't a third-party investigation team. It wasn't conducted by Warner Media. It was conducted by Warner Brothers Pictures, who work for Walter Hamada. Keep that in mind as we move forward.
Ass covering.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. So, then on Friday, September 4th, that's this last weekend. Today's Wednesday, so on this Friday that we just had, in the afternoon, Ray Fisher tweets details about a phone call that he received from Walter Hamada. Here's the tweet. And there's Cordy, and now we're going to say goodbye, Cordy. I'm sorry, you keep popping up on all these tiles. Sorry. Ray Fisher says, so you can better understand how deep this goes, after speaking out about Justice League, I received a phone call from the president of DC Films, that's Walter Hamada, wherein he attempted to throw Joss Whedon and John Berg under the bus in hopes that I would relent on Jeff Johns. I will not. Accountability is greater than entertainment. And like this is the part of the story that starts to get ugly, because at first we start seeing like, oh, hey, Warner Brothers is going to do the right thing and they're going to conduct an investigation. And now, as it turns out, it's an internal investigation team that reports directly to the president of DC Films. And B, as the tweet points out, Walter Hamada is trying to control the situation and tell Ray Fisher what he should be thinking and feeling and what really happened, even though he wasn't there. So after Ray Fisher puts all of this out on social media, Warner Brothers has been backed into a corner. They need to say something. So later that evening, on Friday, this past weekend, Warner Brothers releases a press statement saying Ray Fisher won't cooperate with the investigation. And here's their press statement. I'm not going to read the entire press statement. It's quite lengthy, but I will read the highlighted bit where they say Mr. Fisher insisted that Warner Media hire an independent third-party investigator. This investigator has attempted multiple times to meet with Mr. Fisher to discuss his concerns, but to date, Mr. Fisher has declined to speak to the investigator. What's this? I had another tile, and it looks like I deleted information from it. Okay. Now you can see exactly what it says. That is, there were two more bits of news that I think I deleted. Oh, that hurts my heart. That hurts my heart, you guys, because there were two other things that came out. A tweet from Ray Fisher himself saying this is categorically untrue. He posted that on hold on, I have it. I'm not going to take the time to look it up. On Saturday, the next morning, he posted a video on his Twitter page. Here, let me get this off screen real quick because it's confusing. So Ray Fisher, after Warner Media came out and said, Ray Fisher's not telling the truth, he posted a video of himself talking about how he has a paper trail and he has conversations with Jeff Johns himself. He's got people, he has evidence, he has emails, he has a paper trail, he has all this evidence to show that, he was being intimidated by Jeff Johns, and Walter Hamada is clearly trying to throw him under the bus. Or not throw him under the bus, he's trying to throw Joss Whedon and John Berg under the bus, but save Jeff Johns for whatever reason. So yesterday, Jason Momoa tweeted this picture. Now, Jason Momoa, I don't want to say he doesn't have anything to do with this situation. I mean, he kind of does because he was an actor on the set of Justice League. But, sorry, I had to turn my air conditioning back on. It's getting quite warm in here. He was on the set of Justice League. He was the recipient of some of this alleged abusive behavior. He was appraised of the situation because he was there. He doesn't have any skin in Ray Fisher's game here. So he didn't have a motivating factor except to promote the truth of what really happened here on his tweet. He says, hashtag I stand with Ray Fisher. He tweeted this photo yesterday in solidarity of Ray Fisher. There's more. Whoop, that's not we're looking for. There we go. There's so much more information to this story. You can go ahead and look it up yourself, but that's the bare bones. Ray Fisher said there was a problem. He told president of DC Films about it. There was an investigation. Warner Brothers did not follow through with having a third-party investigator, and it's a little shady, and they want to try and silence certain parts of what Ray Fisher is saying. And Ray Fisher is saying, nope, I've got evidence, I have a paper trail, I have proof. There is so much to this story. It's fairly complicated and in-depth and complex. I've just spent like 10 minutes talking about this. Cordy, what are your knee-jerk reactions to all of these allegations and this crazy story that's unfolding?
When you're dealing with any kind of workplace relations problem, right, there's this underlying principle of acting in good faith, and that goes for both parties. And what we're seeing is that there's a breakdown in that good faith relationship.
Yep.
So things that Ray thought were agreed were then not agreed, and things got shifted. And now you could argue that he's then gone to Twitter, so he's been reactive, but then where else can he go?
Right.
I find it very interesting that another cast member's come out in support of him, because that's actually pretty strong. I think that is pretty strong. And I hope
Two
that
witnesses are
makes
better
Ray
than
feel
one.
better that he's not alone.
Yeah.
And it is. I would be very interested to see whether any other cast members have hot takes on the situation, because I don't know if it's specifically racial abuse or whether this is just like abusive directing in general, which does sometimes happen with directors.
Sure.
But it'd be very interesting to see whether the experience of the cast is different depending on who they are and what roles they play and what identity they are.
And you know,
all of this is really troubling stuff.
It's extremely troubling, especially when you're talking about, because I'm in some ways still kind of am a big champion of Walter Hamada. Look at what he's done with DC films. He took the DCEU from a dying property. Like, the DC movies in cinema were not good, and they were getting bad critical response and even worse audience response. And people were not being kind. So in from a financial aspect, a lot of these movies were just barely breaking even, which is not where you want to be when you're in the movie making business. Walter Hamada steps in and revamps the franchise. They do some really great films. Joker was $1 billion film. They have a really cool vision for the future. I think they've got their heads screwed on straight as a result of putting Walter Hamada in this position. But then you start hearing about like some of the shady stuff that's going on. You want to champion Joss Whedon, but then you start hearing these cases of verbal and emotional abuse going on set, unprofessional. What did he say? How did he, Ray Fisher, how did he put it? Joss Whedon on the set of Justice League was gross, abusive, unprofessional, and completely unacceptable. Like, these are not things that you want to hear about, someone that you have enjoyed their work. And that's the thing, when you start enjoying someone's work and you like what they're putting out there, you immediately want to discredit these claims. But given the level, like Ray Fisher, Cordy, Ray Fisher he will not benefit from this on a personal level. He can only throw his career in the toilet as a result of this. Do you see this any other way?
Yeah, it's true that he doesn't really have anything to gain other than the improvement of the film industry as a whole by this particular line of action. You do have to wonder what it was that got unearthed, that suddenly this whole game has changed, right? Because it was proceeding in a fairly normal, straightforward, entirely acceptable and like way that looked like nice publicity for everybody involved. And then it turns this corner. So what on earth was going on?
So hard and so quickly.
What on earth did they discover?
It's true. And guys, this is a story that is still unfolding. We have not really reached a conclusion to the story yet. Details so far have been very muddled and very hard to find and piece together to find out what is the chronology, what happened, and when did it happen. Hopefully, what I put together for you was a fairly comprehensive and easy to understand format of all of this. If it wasn't, I apologize, but please, what are your thoughts and feelings of this situation? Because it's heartbreaking for everyone involved. As Cordy said, you thought that there was going to be a nice, at least a decent conclusion to all of this, and then it took a weird left turn. And now we're going down a separate rabbit hole that seems completely unnecessary, but here we are, guys. So what's your take on the situation? What are your thoughts and feelings on the Ray Fisher situation? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, that we have one last email of the day to cover, and that email comes to us from Carrie, who lives in Harrisburg. How you doing, Carrie? Carrie says, "Hey, Mike, on yesterday's show, you alluded that today's Dune trailer would be a teaser, But what Warner Brothers dropped today, Warner Brothers, sorry, we're just talking about it. But what Warner Brothers dropped today looks more like a full trailer. Did I miss something? Thanks so much for the email, Carrie. And no, you did not miss anything. In fact, usually when a film studio puts a first look or a first trailer out, it's usually like a small tidbit. It's like a minute, minute 30, maybe even 2 minutes. And in the biz, these types of trailers are referred to as a teaser trailer, or sometimes an announcement trailer, right? They don't give you full ideas as to who the characters are, what the story is going to be, or what you should expect from this film. But the trailer they dropped this morning, today, oh yeah, it's a full-blown first trailer, first look. We know kind of general ideas to what the story is. We know who the characters are. Like, all the big names have been featured in this trailer. It looks pretty cool. Cordy, did you have a chance to check out the trailer? And if you did, what are your thoughts of it?
It looks really lush. God, I grew up with like the old school Dune film, which has many flaws, but it's definitely visually striking. Yeah. I'm definitely going to watch it for comparison. And don't mind seeing more updated take on Leto Atreides. He's rather hot, isn't he? Rather chummy. I'm looking forward to that film. I am. And it's for our current times. I feel like it's just a bizarre, the book series is quite bizarre, but it's very political, and I really want to see how they sort of treat that in the 2020 hellscape. Be really interesting.
Yeah, just so everybody has an understanding as to where I'm coming from, I've never read the book, I've never seen the movie, and I never saw the 2001 miniseries that they put out on as a miniseries. So I have no skin in the game. I'm not familiar. I know of the property of Dune. I know that it exists. I have a basic understanding of kind of what the story is or the theme. Until I saw the trailer this morning, my feeling of Dune was, I'm interested in it because of Denis Villeneuve. He's one of my favorite filmmakers in the business right now. I think his cinematography is breathtaking. He's a master storyteller. He knows how to take his time and tell a really good story. And I was looking forward to it from that perspective and that perspective only. I'm not one for whom sci-fi, I mean, like, you look around at my toy collection, you would think, of course, Mike's into sci-fi. Sci-fi, it's okay. Sci-fi is not one of those genres that I particularly seek out and enjoy. But then I saw this trailer. This trailer looks to me like a mashup of, Star Wars and Game of Thrones. Do you think that's fair to say, Cordy? Like Star Wars and Game of Thrones as a mashup?
There are certain grimdark properties of the Dune universe that seem to resonate. And yeah, it's definitely, the books have always been quite political, and the films have always had like a pretty hot take. Yeah. And then there's like the whole question, there's this like lurking film that never was, which is the Jodorowsky Dune, but for which there are Jean Giraud's amazing sketches, and that always like lurks behind everything, like this spectre that's impossible to actually match because it never got made into a film. It was probably going to be incredibly abstract and trippy as a film. So I don't know. I don't want to speculate about what might have been there, but like there's this whole bizarre artistic canon. I mean, then there's the video game series, which I played as a wee thing. So yeah, there's this massive kind of cultural consciousness behind like the Dune franchise, but it's maybe a little niche. I don't know.
Yeah.
So hard to satisfy the fan base, but I for myself am definitely here for this.
Yeah, this looks really cool. You always kind of, I don't want to say you always know what to expect with Denis Villeneuve, but I mean, you have this idea of like, oh, it's going to have this feeling, this tone. Like if you look at Arrival, look at Sicario, look at Blade Runner 2049, there's this kind of like similar theme in tone of how, of kind of what to expect, right? And that
Yeah, there's like an aesthetic, and it has to
Yeah.
have the story
Yeah.
is it's about those visual kind of beats and the bizarre alien imagery. So having like an
Well,
aesthetic is
also on
good.
Twitter, before this trailer dropped, 15 minutes before they dropped the trailer, Stephen Colbert on Twitter held a Q&A with the cast and director Denis Villeneuve. And one of the things that they were talking about is it was so imperative for Denis Villeneuve not to film anything on green screen. Timothée Chalamet came out and said that there were only 2 scenes that he filmed on green screen. Everything else is live action. Everything else is for real. They're real locations. And Denis Villeneuve's explanation for that was they didn't film Jaws in a bathtub. So why would you, right? Yeah. So if you don't film Jaws in a bathtub, why would you film this on set in front of a green screen? This kind of movie needs that scope. It needs that feel. It needs to feel grounded and real, and it needs to feel important. And by putting this in real locations and filming in real locations, it feels important, and it informs the actors of a completely different experience than we would get on set at a green screen or on the back lot. That I was extremely impressed with, and yeah, just this trailer alone, it looks fantastic. And it bumped my level of excitement up. I think a few days ago, I ranked the Dune as like my number 7th. I think it was my 7th most anticipated film still coming out this year. It just got bumped up. It might actually get bumped up to my number 3. It looks so good. Final thoughts from Cordy on Dune.
Oh gosh. No, it is good, and I think it will be. It's timely. I think it's good to see. I mean, it's an old franchise, but it's good to see it come out in this revitalized form. Usually, I'm not a massive fan of like retellings because I tend to want to see original stories or leave time for original stories. But I think in this case, enough time has elapsed on the franchise that this might actually be its own beast, which would be good. I would like to see it stand as its own story. Totally agree on the visuals. Yeah, and it hopefully should distinguish itself from some of the Lucas style ephemeral filming techniques. By being in reality. It needs to be in reality because yeah, the storyline's pretty unreal. Now, what I'd like to see is in a movie, I'd like to see the Stone Dance of the Chameleon book trilogy turned into a movie because that would be just absolutely wild.
I'm completely unfamiliar.
Oh, mate, it's good. It's good times. It's like Aztec dinosaur apocalypse. Very, very good.
Well, you had me
very entertaining.
You had me
books.
a dinosaur.
Very brutal.
You had me a dinosaur.
Yeah, you'd love it.
Question is, guys, did you see the new Dune trailer? Were you able to see the interview with Stephen Colbert leading up to the trailer? It's all on Twitter. Go on, check it out. If you did, jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. Are you excited for this movie? Does it look incredible? Or are you kind of like, could be better? I want to know. Jump down to the comment section below. Let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, with all that down and out of the way, it is now time to take your live questions. Cordy, I know I had you on retainer for an hour and a half. How you doing on time?
I could hang around a bit longer.
Sounds great. Well, in that case, let's jump in and take your live questions.
Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Guys, we are going to start taking your live questions right now. And Cordy, your video, I don't know why this has decided to resize itself. Let's see if I can resize you real quick. Put you right there. Great. Cool. So here we go. Let's jump in and start taking your live questions. You guys have been texting and tweeting and posting all video long. So let's start going through and seeing what you guys have to say. First of all, Norman Milliken. I've known as Norm, or in my high school days, I knew you as Mr. Milliken. Norm Milliken is one of 2 of the most influential teachers that I've ever had in my schooling career. So, Norm, thank you for joining the film fan community, just being part of the discussion. Norm says, love your show, Mike. Well, Norm, thank you, sir, for everything that you've given me. You've inspired me. It is conceivable to say, and I do not say this with any amount of facetiousness, it is conceivable. This show would not exist if it weren't for you, my friend. So thank you for everything that you've done and given me and shown me. And I I was about to say exposed me to, but that takes on a very different meaning in 2020 than, you know, what it's actually meant. But thank you for everything you've ever done, Norm. Cordy, do you have any teachers in your life that have kind of changed your worldview?
I come from a teaching family, so most of the teachers that I know and who have inspired me are also sort of friends on that level. I've definitely had some exciting lecturers, one in particular who meshes a love of ancient history and pop culture and movies, which is a very interesting hot take. And has the best academic book title, And Then It Was Destroyed by the Volcano, with a reference to Pompeii and Toga movies.
Well,
so that's pretty cool. It's good to feel like you can be a bit of an academic and a nerd and also be like love trashy stuff. That's a very good thing to have in a friend.
Next comment comes to us from David K. Jones, who was our guest on the show yesterday, who's my co-host. David K. Jones says, upside down sausage is bae. That is true.
Oof.
Upside down sausage. If anybody wants to put their hat in the ring to win this as a free complimentary prize for watching Gotta Love Them Movies, all you have to do is subscribe to the channel on YouTube, like this video, share this video on social media, comment in the section below, Toy Tuesdays with the word Grand Slam, and you will be put in the running to win an upside down faced plush sausage from Denny's.
Maybe it's an Antipodean democracy sausage. So in Australia, if you go to vote, they give you a sausage.
What?
Like they give you a snack.
Really?
Yeah, it's like a voting reward. Like they'll penalize if you don't enroll to vote. Then you know you get told off. But if you do enroll to vote, you get a sausage.
Guys, go.
This is a thing. This is a real thing. Democracy sausage.
Support democracy. Win a sausage.
I swear I'm not making this
That
up.
is genius. That is completely brilliant. Robbie Sprite says Sprat. Excuse me, Robbie. Sorry. Robbie Sprat says, "Hi, Mike." Well, hi, Robbie. Welcome back. Let's jump into to the film community. Matthew Weil says, "Donnie Yen for the win. Love his films." Right?
He had such like gravitas, and he was just lovely. I was just celebrated every time he came on screen.
He was the reason that I stuck through the movie Mulan. Matthew Wiles says, "I'll be waiting for Mulan to be free with that score." I would wait the 3 months and it'll be, well, I don't want to say free. I mean, you still have to have the Disney Plus subscription. Or if you want to own it on VOD, you can buy it in December and own it in your category. But catalog. In your movie catalog. Anyway, do you agree, Cordy?
Yeah, what are words? No, I'd agree. It's worth having a look at, out of curiosity. If you have like massive emotional childhood attachment to the animated Mulan, just try to put that out of your mind, and it will be hard because every time the music makes a call back to the Disney one, you're just like, no. But it is a film. It is a film that happened.
This is true.
It's a film there.
Matthew Wiles says, and this is regarding the Ray Fisher situation. Up until Jason Momoa supported him, I thought with the timeline of events, this was Ray. Hold on. Up until I thought with the timeline of events, this was Ray going to a meeting about being in the Flash and getting told he doesn't have the part. He then kicks off, yeah. Well, I hated working on the set with everyone mean to me. Okay, got you. Okay, so what Matthew was saying is that up until the time that Jason Momoa came out and supported him, it was Matthew's perception that
he was having a grump just because, I see.
Nope, not the case. It seems that Ray Fisher, I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. I do. Having said that, I definitely side with Ray Fisher in this regard, because like we pointed out earlier, what does he have to gain from publicly coming out and slandering the name of Joss Whedon and pretty much everybody else over at DC Films? So he has nothing to gain and everything to lose. Hashtag I stand with Ray Fisher. Own a Night, or rather under the guise of Own a Night, my uncle Carl writes, "Enjoy your show immensely. Well, thank you, Uncle Carl. Yeah, hope you're enjoying. Drop down to the comment section below, and continue. Let's be part of the film fan community here a little bit. And what kind of movies do you want to talk about, Uncle Carl? Cordy, if you could recommend a film to my Uncle Carl, what one movie would you recommend? Knowing nothing about this man, except that
I know
he is my
nothing
uncle.
about your. Oh, gee, that's really
You only
tough.
get to recommend one.
Right, okay. I would tell him to go check out the Documentary Edge Festival website, because there are lots of like short and manageable docos. So I feel like that's a good place to go looking for stuff that isn't too long and taxing, but will expand your world. And there's some like thought-provoking stuff, but there's also just some like real funny and surreal stuff on there.
I dig it.
There's a short film called All Cats Are Grey in the Dark that I watched the other day on a friend's recommendation, which is about like a sad Swiss cat breeder. And that sounds terrible, but it was so funny. Like in this very kind of Swiss German way. It was just like weirdly funny. So I ended up just cracking up at this poor lonely man and his cat.
I would be very interested to see if my uncle actually watches that movie and then lets us know. I want to know. Uncle Carl, if you're watching this.
It's a whole 8.5 minutes long, so it's not a large commitment, but there's a whole bunch of stuff on that website.
It's only
that's
8.5
like good times.
minutes. Go
You're
for it.
Yeah, go on, do it.
What else are you doing? Sorry, that sounded condescending. I did not mean it that way. Matthew Weil says Ray is throwing his career away here. He could just say that I'm not working with Joss again. I mean, he could just say I'm not working with Joss again, but that is if he actually does feel like there was a problem on set, greater than just him having a bad day at the office. These types of problems need to be addressed, and it has become a huge problem within Hollywood. I mean, look at Harvey Weinstein, for crying out loud. Harvey Weinstein got away with everything except for murder for how many years? How many decades? He is a grimy human individual who, when he got called out, he didn't just get called out. He threw himself under the bus for years of horrible horribleness. I mean, there's no other way to say it. And this kind of stuff, whenever you're dealing with millions and millions of dollars, problems like this get swept under the rug, and you need some kind of a whistleblower to change the culture. And I think that's what Ray Fisher is trying to do here. And he's been very public in saying, like, look, if this kills my career, so be it. At least I can sleep well at night knowing that I made a positive change in the world. It's possible that nobody's going to want to work with him after this. It's very possible. People in this regard tend to be very cliquish, and they sometimes protect each other and look out for each other, and not always in a positive way. So is he throwing his career away? He might be, but he's also, in my opinion, doing what needs to be done. He's doing the Lord's work.
It's also pretty hard if you say, well, I don't want to work with this director. It's entirely reasonable for a studio head to come back and go, well, why?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You have to come up with something, not just like, I'm not vibing it. So I think he's been honest.
Yeah,
and you should be applauded for his honesty.
Matthew Wiles goes on to say, the Dune trailer looks great. None of the fade to black every 2 seconds. Oh, I know. That's so annoying, right?
That's like my pet hate. It's like, learn to cut.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
if you cut so much footage is made expressly for the purpose of looking good in a trailer. If that's the case, then at least make it so the trailer is properly cut.
I agree. Gonna get to the books now. Do you know if I can request Josh to voice it on Audible? Josh being my former roommate. He works as a voice actor for Audible. He narrates books. So very tongue in cheek. Matthew was saying, "Hey, can I get Josh, who's a mutual friend of ours, to voice the entire Dune book on Audible?" I highly doubt that. I mean, if you want to hear Josh read Dune, if you want to hear his voice read Dune, I think this is a project you will personally have to finance.
Get him to read Goodnight Dune, which is the Goodnight Moon parody.
let's do that. I assume it's maybe like 10
you just
pages?
discovered a thing,
5
didn't
pages?
you, Mike?
Yes.
There is a Good Night
Never
Moon.
heard of it.
It's fully illustrated as well.
Fantastic.
It's amazing.
Yes, please. Matthew Wild says, I'm looking for Dune to be a new trilogy or universe. I heard somewhere that this film coming out is the first in what could be a series of films. Very similar to what Star Wars was. The original Star Wars was an original film all its own. And after the success of the film, that's where parts 2 and 3 came from. But yeah, Denis Villeneuve's films traditionally have not done well at the box office. The studios, for whatever reason, just have not had his back in that regard. They don't promote his films, and so traditionally at the box office, they do not do very well. I would love for them to do well, but they don't. I hope this becomes a trilogy, because this based on the one trailer, the one and only look of the movie that we have so far, looks incredible. Cordy, any thoughts on that?
Well, there's a ton of written material, so you could go wild with that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's kind of an arc, I think there's a narrative arc across the books, but there's also like the original Dune book stands quite nicely as its own story.
Sure.
So either one's good. They probably will make a film and then see if any sequels or spin-offs kind of warrant themselves from that.
We'll see. I mean, hopefully people go out to the movies to support this film, and hopefully we can get more made. Because why not? I mean, it looks great. Robbie Spratt says, I love Dune. I read all the books years ago and saw all the movies. I'm excited for the new film and will definitely see it, but the trailer didn't grab me like I was hoping. Interesting. The music seemed odd to me, and I didn't like the hook of the I didn't like the look of the sandworms. That being said, I fully trust that they will do an amazing job with it. Yeah, I mean, as I've said before, Denis Villeneuve is such a brilliant filmmaker. I have not seen a single film of his that I haven't liked. And not just, oh yeah, that was good. I mean, like, whoa, that was amazing. He brings it. I liked the music in the trailer. I thought it worked for me, but I see where you're coming from, where it provided a different tone than maybe what you were expecting. Cordy, you're more familiar with this property. How did the music in the trailer land for you?
It's that thing of having the shadow of a really strong, like, both visual and auditory legacy, and that can be a bit hard and jarring. So I'm just going to take it on its own merits personally. No sting in a bikini this time.
Last comment of the day, coming from Robbie Spratt. Everyone I know who has watched the new Mulan hasn't said great things about it. I'm probably going to skip this one. There are already plenty of other great Chinese films I'd rather see. This is everything what Cordy's been saying this entire show. I couldn't.
There's also a 2020. There's a 2020 Chinese Mulan epic out there. So it's like there's so many other Hua Mulan stories that you can indulge in, and some really good, cracking good ones. So.
I agree.
But that's fine. It's a myth, right? And myths have their retellings, and that is all cool. Everyone has their vision.
I'm all for, I don't think that this is the kind of movie that you should just not ever see. It was fine. It was okay. As we said before, it was a movie that happened. There are better tellings of this story. And again, to Cordy's point and to your point, Robbie, might as well go off and see other iterations and support the Chinese film industry. Support other industries that aren't our industry, Let's see what other flavors, what other people have to offer. Cordy, last thoughts.
I might return to Mulan, like I did to Troy, because when I first saw Troy, I was again like way too wrapped up in like, but it's not historically accurate, or whatever it was, or it's not gay enough, and again, Mulan's a bit like, haha, where are the queer undertones? But I think if I give it some years and I return to it, I'll probably be like, oh no, this is fine. And be less extreme and less critical of it. But yeah, just it's not what I need, it's not what we need.
Yeah, I would have liked something a little bit more powerful and impactful, but hey, is what it is. Anyway, guys, that does it for the show today. I would like to offer a huge thanks to my guest today, Cordy Black, coming to us all the way from New Zealand. First of all, Cordy, where in New Zealand do you live? Because when we met, it was in Wellington. I don't know if you live in Wellington or if you live outside.
So currently we're in level 2, which means that we're in a sort of a voluntary state of semi-work from home, semi-come into town,
Sure.
and everybody wears masks on the train. So I'm currently in a suburb north of Wellington, and I come into Wellington to work. Yes, it's lovely out here. It's a lot of bush. There's a river close by, but we're also about 30 k's away from the capital city.
That's awesome. And what projects do you have to plug? Like, what is it that you're working on? What do you have coming up that you need to get the word out about? And just let everybody know, like, hey, let's check out this thing.
Usually I'd have dozens of art projects on, but COVID's been really tough on that. So at the moment, my big push is around just getting people to work in happy ways and safe ways through my work with New Zealand's tech union. New Zealand has a tech union. So that's pretty much the only thing I have to spruik. Basically, get out there, have each other's backs. If you work in screen, then, find your community, ask, is it normal? If things don't feel right or you don't feel safe, that's a problem. Yeah. Don't just accept it. Get help. That's it.
I agree.
Be safe.
I agree. All right, guys. Well, if you like this video, please click like. If you really like this video, click subscribe. And if you really, really like this video, click share. Because that is what Wamulan would love for you to do. Anyway, guys, my name is Mike Brown. We live in a weird, crazy world where everybody has their own ideas and opinions about things. I highly encourage you to please share some love, speak kind words to each other, infuse a little bit of kindness into the world today. Again, a huge thanks to my guest, Cordy Black, for sharing their morning with us. It's morning in New Zealand right now. Still currently. Do you still have your cup of tea?
I ran out of tea, but I do have a secret plate of tater tots, so everything's fine.
So you're moving from breakfast into lunch.
Into brunch. We're in brunch mode
this
now.
Is true. Anyway, guys, thank you for joining us. Send me an email, and I will see you tomorrow.